Your fifth promise was stopping the small boats. Boat crossings are going up, aren't they?
Yes, they were down last year by a third. They're down over the last 12 months by a little less than that. This year, what we've seen is one particular country, Vietnam, accounting for the majority of the increase. But actually, the plans that we've put in place last year show that it is possible to make a difference to this problem, which, by the way, before I got this job, everybody said was impossible. Everybody said it was impossible to get the numbers down at all, but we showed last year that that was possible. And now we have a clear plan to put a deterrent in place, and that means...
And I will come on to Rwanda, but look, crossings have risen by 40% this year against last year to 11,247 people crossing on small boats this year. It's going to be a record year. You have failed to deliver on this pledge. Please acknowledge it.
No, if you look at the sum total of the time that I've been Prime Minister, because you've picked one particular period, if you look at the sum total of the time that I've been Prime Minister, the numbers are down.
The numbers were down on last year. The numbers in 2023 were down on 2022.
It's because of the work that we've done.
Well, it's a record year this year. They've gone up by 40%.
But if you look at
in the first
because
6 months
these things are
is...
cyclical, because what you've seen is one new country, Vietnam, accounting for a lot of the new arrivals.
All right.
And just as we dealt with Albania...
OK, let's go back to basics. You said you were stopping small boats. Boat crossings are going up this year. Let's talk about Rwanda. You acknowledge that, don't you? OK, let's move on. You will get the flights off the ground in July. You promised that?
Yes.
Flights off the ground, no if, no buts. How many flights and how many people are you going to send over the summer?
Well, what we've done is already started detaining people. Airfield's on standby, planes are booked. The date for the first flight is out on the 24th, I think it is, of July. We haven't given more details beyond that to not compromise the operational security, but there will be a regular rhythm of flights, not just one. And the important point here is this is about establishing a deterrent, because I believe that if people come here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. We need to have somewhere safe to remove them, and that's how we will stop the boats. And that's what Rwanda is about. Can I just ask you one thing? If you were so confident about getting these flights off in July, that this was the apex, really, of stopping the boats, why did you call an election before voters could actually see it was happening? Why? Because an election is an important moment for our country, and my priority when I got this job was to restore economic stability. And we talked about bringing inflation down and getting the economy growing, and then being in a position, as we are now, to cut people's taxes. And for me, with that economic foundation established, it was the right moment to have an election to then discuss the future of our country. And this election is about the future. And you're right, on migration, there is a choice at this election, and elections have consequences. I've got a plan about what I want to do.
And I'm going to come on to that.
Keir Starmer doesn't agree with that plan.
OK, let's come on to that.
Can't tell you what he would do with illegal migrants. And that's a choice for everyone here and everyone watching. If you want to stop the boats, there's a choice of how you think that needs to be dealt with, and I'm the one that's got an answer for you.
And I would like to talk to you about a bigger issue that people are concerned about, which is legal migration. For many years, people were frustrated that immigration kept going up. It was the #1 reason for voters in the run-up to the EU referendum, one of the main reasons for Brexit. That's right, isn't it?
Immigration is too high.
No, one of the reasons people voted for Brexit was to take back control of our borders, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah? OK. Yes. OK. Well, let's just go and look at the record. Because what was the total net migration figure into the UK in the past 3 years?
You'll have it there, so...
But the audience, do you want me to tell them? Because they won't know.
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head for the past 3 years.
It's 1.9 million people in the last 3 years. What was the total net migration figure in the last 3 years running up to the 2016 referendum when we had freedom of movement? Do you know it?
I don't have it offhand.
It was 836,000 people. And I'm sure many people in this room would have voted for Brexit. 70% of people in Grimsby voted for Brexit. How do you think they feel about that when they hear that net migration into this country has more than doubled in the last 3 years from before we left the European Union?
Yeah, I'm sure it's too high. I've been very clear that it's too high, and I'm sure people feel frustrated and angry about it.
You were the original Brexiteer. weren't you? Well, you were one of the...
Yes, I did support
Brexit. You were always a Brexiteer.
Yes, and I believe that was the right decision for our country.
Frustrated, cynical,
absolutely.
betrayed?
I just said I'm sure people feel frustrated about that. And again, the numbers are too high. Of course they're too high. What I can tell you is what I've done since I've had this job, and
but
that's last year.
Charge.
Yes, and the numbers are too high. I'm not making any bones about that. The numbers are too high, Beth. But what I can tell you is what I've done in the time I've had this job is already start to bring them down because we've taken action to change things. So last year, the numbers were down by 10% already. And this year, the number of visas that we've issued is down by around a quarter. And the forecasts show that we're on track to halve net migration in just over a year's time. So that shows and hopefully gives people some confidence we're now heading in the right direction. To give you an example of some of the things we've done, we've clamped down on abuse of the social care visa, tightened up the number of dependents that students can bring, and also raised the salary so that you have to earn £38,500 to come here on a work visa.
Okay.
Now, these measures are now starting to have an impact. You've seen that this year, as I said, numbers down by a quarter, forecast to fall by a halve overall for net migration.
So are you making that pledge now? What's your promise to drive net migration down?
Yeah, well, what we've said we'll do is have actually a migration cap that's voted on in Parliament, so all your members of Parliament will vote every year on the number of migrants that will come. Well, that's, I said, the forecast at the moment is the numbers to halve, and then what we want to do is continue reducing it every year thereafter. But the key thing is here is there will be, for the first time, a legal cap on all migration so that we can guarantee that the numbers do continue to come down.
David Cameron, 2010, tens of thousands, reduced net migration. May 2017, Theresa May reduced net migration to tens of thousands. Boris Johnson, 2019, committed to making sure overall numbers come down below the then net migration figure of just over 250,000 people. Why should anyone believe anything that you say on immigration? Why?
And I can completely understand people's cynicism about this, but what you can add to the end of that list, since I've been in charge, numbers down 10% and visas issued this year down by a quarter. Right, so that's I've had this job for 18 months. Numbers were down last year. They're down considerably at the start of this year, and they will keep coming down because of the measures that I've already announced.
1.9 million people in the last 3 years. But it's, you know, that's the record.